Less than a week to go to the game week 1 deadline. Transfer market's hotting up. Pre-season's almost finished. Take a look at some more drafts. Right, guys, welcome back. This is the Above Average FPL podcast. My name's Adam, and as always, I'm joined by Baker. Evening, mate. How are you?
Very well, mate. Saturday night. You can tell it must be pre-season if we're podding on a Saturday night.
Well, lots of things going on. Obviously, I'm on holiday now, technically. You can see a little change of scenery going on, guitars and whatnot. And you're basically a floating head. So
I'm just a floating head. I'm either a floating head or have insanely wide shoulders. I'm one of the two. So people can guess that on the comments. But yeah, maybe it's just a floating head.
Maybe it's just a floating head. So at the time of recording, the Community Shield was played today. So that's where we are. Let's say we got just under a week to go now until the game week 1 deadline. And we brought another guest on because we enjoy having people to chat with. So we've got JC, FPL Spaceman. JC, how you doing?
Hello. Yeah, I'm good. Nice to be back. Nice to be on. Good to see you both. Yeah, doing all right.
Such a happy guy. So relaxed.
Yes. I mean, I've got a cold, so I'm powering down the Vit C tablets, but I'm good otherwise.
You're all good. You're all good. Tinkering much at all at the moment, or is it still? Are you still waiting for? Because I imagine you're doing a lot of, you're looking at preseason for minutes, I guess, more than anything.
Yeah, mostly. I mean, like there is some stuff in terms of like, well, if this guy's out, then does that mean this guy's moving forward? But you're moving the needle rather than unearthing some hidden. Oh, this guy's playing striker. We had no idea. I think the days of those are sadly behind us with so many active, engaged managers following it. But yeah, it's good to see who's playing and who's fit, and whether players come back from injury already, whether new transfers are ready. But mostly, yeah, I kind of follow along. Whereas I think some people have been drafting since the day the game opened, so I don't know how much energy they got left. I've tinkered a bit, mostly just like see how the pieces fit together, landscape stuff. But I play a few other formats as well, so I'm getting models and stuff ready for those and seeing how they go. But yeah, crunch time soon. That's most of the preseason done, so we'll be properly tinkering this week, locking everything in.
I can't do more than one game. I try. I do a little bit of fan tracks draft. I do a little bit of draft, but when it's draft, because you're sort of then like allocated players almost, it doesn't feel like you're having to do it as much. You just sort of set lineups most of the time. But I can't do it. But Adam, obviously you play a couple of things. So rare.
Yeah, so I'm playing So Rare at the moment, so that's good.
Definitely. JC, how many games do you play?
Not as many as some people I know, but I do FPL. I'll do a couple of FPL drafts with some friends. I'm playing Telegraph and Sun Dream Team this year, and Fan Team as well. So there's like a multi-entry Fan Team one. So you end up managing. Well, you can enter up to 25, but I'll do it as like 5 stacks of 5 or something. I think that's all this year. Played Sky last year as well, but it's nice to just play around. Well, I am playing Allsvenskan and Elite Serien as well.
Of course you are.
I forgot.
Swedish and Norway.
Yeah. Just ran a quick solve this morning for the Swedish one. Play my wild card. But I'm not sure I know who all the players are. But it's just fun.
Do you do badly in any of them?
I'm not doing well in Allsvenskan this year. But Elite Serien is my first season, and I seem to be top 1k. All of us. I don't know what I've done, but I have bad seasons. I didn't win the draft last year. My friends make fun of me because I spend so much time on the games and got beat. But I don't know. I used to do badly.
I don't know. You were so season before last. Was it 900 something like that?
909, I think.
909. Out of 12 million players, whatever it is, yeah, which is
a lot.
Incredible. And then last time we spoke to you, you were about 100 or something like that.
I think it was 200 and something. 500. Yeah, I hovered around there from game week 26-ish, 25, 26. I had a bit of a burst because, well, good fortune basically. I didn't have any Liverpool attackers when they all got injured in the double game week. But then played my game at 35 wildcard, and ranked about 400th. I thought, okay, let's have a crack at top 100, and finished like 2.5k. But funnily enough, not owning Haaland for his 4 goals against Wolves will drop you down the ranks.
Yes.
But no regrets. It was good fun.
Yeah. But I guess, do you feel like you played that way more aggressively because of the 900 of the time before, and it was how far can you go?
Yeah, I think having had that season, I felt a lot freer to kind of play around. And that season before as well, I'd had some pretty good underlying data ranks as well. I was first on the massive data ranking on review, which still has plenty of luck involved. Like I remember falling into, I've got 3 Man United players and their double game week was just suddenly much earlier. And I was like, I'm well set for that. Which wasn't brilliant planning or great play. It was possible, but it went my way. So there's variation in that. But I was like, okay, now that I've come first in this and got a top 1k, I don't feel like I needed to prove anything. If I'm still ranked highly, I'll chase those. And also playing other games where there's money online. FPL is free game, might as well. If I'm going to express myself anywhere with some silly picks or some interesting paths, then FPL's the place to do it, I think.
Yeah, it's like the analytical version of My Team, My Emotion, basically.
It's absolutely that.
Exactly that. Yeah. And that's what Baker said. And Baker said, and Luke said as well, that if there's anybody that I should be speaking to about how to improve the way that I play, is to actually speak to you and more often and get into your head and understand. Yeah, understand
We're two
how
sides of the same coin, aren't we?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Except I play a lot more with my heart, I would say, than
your emotion.
Exactly. But that's just the way it is for me.
I think I play with my brain and then let my emotion follow whatever happens. I like riding the emotional wave and just being like, I've picked this team, let's see what happens, rather than I'm going to put my emotion into the selection.
Yeah, the decision. Yeah, putting the emotion into the decision is probably the wrong place to be. Whereas the emotion coming out of the outcome is fine.
Yeah,
that makes more sense.
I got really angry when Haaland scored 4 goals.
Yeah, exactly.
Should have done, but not picking him was still, that was fine. It wasn't stupid. Well, maybe it was. A lot of people say it was.
But hey, look, if you can be fun, you can be, silly picks and get the figure. Like that's, I guess, we're sitting here like less than 1k, 2k. There's not many people that do that back to back. So there is method. There is method there, and we know, obviously, from us knowing you, analytics world in terms of how you would work it, use of models, use of solvers. How long's that been that you've operated in that world in terms of fantasy?
In terms of fantasy, it's probably been 3 seasons. I think it was 3 seasons ago. It was the year after the COVID year where I built my own model. Whereas before that, I was just playing with friends. But I think I was always of that mindset, if that makes sense, that data is going to be useful and we should think about things probabilistically rather than binary. And I just wasn't applying it to FPL, and then found other people who were and realized that there was a lot of cool things you could do. So I tried my own model and then gave up on it because it was a lot of faff. And there was a relatively cheap one that was much better, and I didn't have to do all the maintenance. So that was 3 seasons ago, and then the MD1 season was my first season of like, I'm all in on this rather than experimenting. So I'd say 2 seasons of like properly getting stuck into it and actually building my own stuff and getting involved in Twitter and Discord circles rather than just watching YouTube videos and having a go. But yeah, it's great. It's a great group. I really like it.
How does it play out like at the start of the season? I think, in most people's worlds, there's a lot of people that say like you can't win FPL in the first few weeks, but you can lose it, and all that sort of thing is said. There's a lot of people that says sort of stay with the pack and all that sort of things. So, does any of that play out at all in your thinking? I know I've heard you on other podcasts talk about like risk and setting your risk and stuff like that. So I think that'd be quite interesting if you just sort of say that, because there'd be lots of people listening to this that haven't heard how you try to apply risk in your team, and does it change at the start of a season?
Yeah, I think last year was the first year where I sort of really started trying to tune the risk in as like an actual factor that was coming into it rather than just like a captaincy decision from before. I was actually like, okay, what macro strategy stuff am I going to do to try and be different but still make good picks? And you do dial it up right at the end. Actually, right at the start is maybe not the time to be doing that specifically. You're not looking for it because it's got so much knock-on effects. So if you're, a million down on team value towards the end of the season, that can lose a bit, but it's not as much as you might think. And actually, we have done measurements on that, and you can kind of value it. So maybe making an early transfer during game week 2 or something. Like, okay, I'm probably going to make this move, but I might make it now because I can catch the price rise and avoid the price fall. So I think early on last year, it used to be to do with like protecting a bit of team value. Rather than trying to like find, okay, this player's someone that I think other people aren't on and I can get on them and get some relative risk there. And if you play with the objective risk, which is like how likely is it that something goes wrong, or how, do the pieces fit together? If this guy gets injured, how badly does that go? Or I'm making a bet on an unproven player. So I avoided Jackson at the start of last season because he'd only had one season of data in a top 5 league. So he'd been at Villarreal for a season, and that was basically it. So the error bars are much wider. So I'll try and avoid that at the start, but then towards the end, you start dialing up we've got a pretty good idea of these guys now, but I can choose this path that takes me through some players that people don't own, or even just avoids a highly owned player like Haaland. But at the start, it's trying to be robust so that things don't go wrong. And often when you do that, actually, because some of that thinking and some of the models aren't propagated all the way through the community, then that does just lead you to a player that's a bit different. So I remember on like wildcard 17 I played last year, a lot of us went on Douglas Luiz because he was on penalties and good for bonus, and obviously we got a bit lucky when he kept scoring, but that was a player that looked pretty robust, and everyone was like, oh, maybe I should get him, but it's pretty boring. I don't want him. So my friends were like, I don't want to. I don't want a wild card into Douglas Luiz. That's boring. But for me, that was like, oh, that's a player that the data is suggesting is good, and people don't want to put in. So to me, that's enticing. I get excited by that. I'm like, okay, great. I don't have to seek risk out. It's coming to me easily. I just put him in, and we got lucky. He did score some penalties in a row, and that doesn't always happen. But yeah, sometimes the risk just sort of comes to you without having to search it. And I think that used to happen a lot more based on talking to people who were in the analytic space a bit before me. Actually, these paths that came out were so different to what everyone else was doing that you could almost just kind of walk into that relative risk position just by playing for maximizing your expected value. But at the minute, yeah, I wouldn't look for anything too different. You can also start with the template team and react differently. I think that's something that happens quite a lot in the other games, because the template is actually stronger in some of the other formats that I've played, more so than it is in FPL, despite the complaints that some people make. FPL, there's still quite a lot of degrees of freedom. So you can just pick a template team and go, okay, I'm gonna not make this transfer when I see everyone else doing it, or just picking the lesser traveled path of the 50-50s. And all of a sudden, you've got Douglas Luiz in your team.
I mean, the risk, obviously, the risk with the other games is that there's actual money around, right? Right, there's actually something to play for. So you don't want to lose the chance. You could probably middle with the pack, and on a fan team £20 entry, you could middle with the pack and get a little bit of upside, and you might win 24 quid, right? For example. So you can see why it's sensible to at least let the people who are pissing around just fall away. And let
which
them do
is
their
that's
own
how
thing.
I play other games. So if I do go play them, I'll be like fan team. I'll be like, all right, I'll put 20 quid and I'll do the thing. I'll put a ridiculous team out really early on, and by game week 4, it hasn't worked out, and I'm not playing this anymore.
Yeah,
which is fine. People can do that.
Yeah,
but you're happy. You're happy when people do that.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
I guess so.
You, of course you are.
Yeah, I guess that is put into the prize pot. I think also you talk about like staying with the pack early on, and I think that's much less in our control than people think it is, especially right at the start, because what who is the pack?
Yeah.
There's like 10
Yeah.
million people. You don't know which people are going to be staying the course.
Is it?
And even if you stay with the pack in terms of like expected outcomes, your relative outcomes are going to be really wide early on, because if you're just in the bottom percentile of luck in the first 5 weeks, you're going to be way behind some people who are in the top 10% for 5 weeks. And you expect some people to be lucky for 5 weeks and some people to be unlucky for 5 weeks. So if you're ranked like 4 million after 5 weeks, but you look at your underlying data, or you go, actually, like, I didn't really make any mistakes here, I just was unfortunate, then you don't necessarily have to start chasing there or going, okay, I need to change my strategy entirely. Because people come through late on. Like, I think it was Kaza who was like 3 or 4 million after like game week 8 or 9, and he finished like top 10k without doing anything differently. He's just like, I just kept playing. But it's hard to get your head around that. And I think like it's not invalid to go, I'm 3 million after game week 8. That's frustrating. It is frustrating, but also if you evaluate your team and your picks and you go, oh, actually, I didn't really do anything I didn't think I should have done, you're probably just on the wrong side of 8 coin flips. So keep doing what you're doing, and you'll come back and hold your head. I don't know.
Well, we should get into.
We-
Well, we got some drafts, haven't we? We need to talk about Solanke.
Solanke.
we need to do the admin first. Before we do that, we need to do the admin. So
Okay.
yeah, if you're listening on YouTube and you enjoy the content that we do, please make sure you do drop a like on the video, and if you want to see more from us, make sure you drop a subscribe. If you want to go follow Johnny, he is at FPL_Spaceman on X, and you can go and find him there. You can find him in the analytics Discord. There'll be a link to that in the description below as well, if I can find it while I'm on holiday.
I'll send it over.
Yeah, cool. That'll work. And yeah, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, wherever, drop a review on there, and you can drop a comment in Spotify. And as long as you're not being horrific to us, I can publish it. Because it doesn't mean I'm just going to post all the good ones. I'll post the mediocre ones as well. But let us know what you think, and let us know who's in your team. Basically, it's less than a week to go now, and it's getting very, very close. JC, is there anything that you wanted to plug from your side?
Yes. I guess if you hadn't heard, myself, Sertelp and Trout and Jorgen, who are prominent members in the analytics community as well. Most people will know about Sertelp. He's sort of he's got his own podcast, FPL Optimized. And you've probably seen all his charts on your Twitter timeline.
On here,
and on here, of course,
literally
on here.
So most people should be familiar, but we're making our own FPL tool that we're really excited about. So that'll be coming out in early 2025. We'll be posting updates via a newsletter in the run up to that. So if you go to fploptimize.com/sign up, you can sign up for that newsletter. So we think we've got some new innovative ideas that we want to bring to the community, and build a sort of state-of-the-art user-friendly tool. There's stuff that we think we haven't seen on the market that we want to bring forward, and obviously there's the power of optimization and modeling and analytics, but it's analytics for all. It's we think there's going to be something for everyone in there, but that's a plug for that. And to continue with the admin, I'm also teaming up myself with Emma at Jump the Wave on Twitter. I think most people will be familiar with her predicted lineups data. So it's like hive mind predictions for the top, I think it was 9 teams we did last year. So I'll be taking over the data side of that with her. But we are looking for new predictors. So if you can message at Jump the Wave on Twitter if you're a fan of particularly Spurs, City, and Chelsea, but all the top teams. So yes, look forward to that. Admin done.
Admin done. Beautiful.
Back to the pod.
Solanke.
Solanke.
Let's just go to Solanke, because obviously he's in.
Hey, I've noticed that I've started calling him Solanke and not Big Dom. But when he was at Bournemouth, I always just called him Big Dom.
Yeah.
Now he's at
It's
Spurs
funny.
for
It's
some
funny
reason.
you've
I
gone
call him
that way.
Solanke.
I feel like you'd be like
You'd be
on.
more. I should be more familiar
You're
with
on
him.
first name terms now. Come on,
Big Dom.
Oh, big Dom.
How good was
Yeah.
the reveal, the tweet earlier? Because 12 years ago when he
Mm.
was 14 years old, he tweeted saying, "I've just turned up to the Tottenham training ground. It's amazing," or something like that. And he did a little video that said, "Oh, just an update. It is actually amazing," which I thought was
I'd
brilliant.
realised I'd never heard him speak, and I didn't expect him to speak like that.
No,
No,
no, me neither. Me neither.
quiet Dom.
Quiet Dom.
Yeah,
Are you
he's a good
excited?
player. Me, I'm excited.
You're
I've
excited.
been a Dom Solanke fan since he moved up with Bournemouth, and no one wanted to pick him until reviews model came out and went, oh, maybe Solanke's quite good. Yeah, he's been really good. 19 goals last season, was it? That was pretty impressive. And a missed penalty when we all captained him.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, I think he'd be a really good fit for Spurs. His availability is one of his big assets as well,
Mm.
which is something that's been a little lacking with poor old Richarlison, who
Yeah, I mean, he's done more than
like,
double the
but
minutes of Richarlison, hasn't he? You know,
yeah,
it's this showing it, but 3,330 minutes. I mean, more than everything, he's 6'2", and we
big.
need him in both boxes. You know, again today we played a friendly, and it was like, I mean, first half we didn't have either of our starting centre backs in the team, but you were like, my God,
Dom can fill in.
we need Dom. We need Dom in
Centre back.
both boxes. We need Van der Ven, 6'4" Van der Ven, 6'2" Solanke. I don't know how big Romero is, but he's nasty anyway. So he does things. We need lots of big players, and it's a lot easier to prep for set pieces if your players are always on the pitch. You can have more of a plan of where someone will be, and he's there. Quite interesting, 19 goals from 19.6 xg. You were saying this beforehand that finishing isn't traditionally been particularly strong.
Yeah, I think actually, like, if you look at post-shot XG data, or just even goals versus XG, you can often use there's a finishing model that you can use that kind of calculates roughly how much you're expecting this player to convert their XG into goals. And the Darwin Nunez, who is often remarked as terrible finisher, actually scores more highly than Dom Solanke does. So Dom's the best finisher. But if you're making all these chances, and you can match the average, and yeah, it's fine. He's good player. But yeah, finishing is maybe he might be a frustrating asset to own in FPL, but great, that's fine. If other people are getting frustrated, I'll buy him.
I mean, we spoke about it. We spoke about it as part of the bonus pod, and we were talking about specifically how it impacted him. And we spoke about the fact that he didn't pick up as many benefits from shots on target as other strikers, and that because we're looking for well, at the time we were looking for strikers in middling teams, right? That we're gonna score in a game that maybe they lose 2-1 or 3-1 or something, and could that be a 6-point goal type thing? I think that's what I was saying. Obviously now he's going to move to the Spurs, and hopefully he does just get a lot more chances. I'd hope that XG number increases just by volume. I mean, how high can it go? We don't. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Team XG gets about a 20% bump based on
Yeah.
Tottenham versus Bournemouth, so that does help him. It is something to think about, though, isn't it? That he has got one of the lowest baselines for bonus already, which didn't change hugely. It changed a little bit, but didn't change hugely because he misses a lot. Missed the target, not just misses, but misses the target quite often. So you do wonder it's slightly easier for him to get bonus under Bournemouth than it would be against Tottenham because he's the talisman, isn't he? And then he comes into a team where there's lots of players that can score bonus and do those things. So yeah, he a bit. You've seen it with Haaland almost, haven't you? Is that Haaland has to get 2 goals to get the bonus because all the other players also contribute. It could be similar with Solanke. I doubt he'll have many 1-goal 9-pointers.
I think the bonus is important, and obviously we should factor it in. But like the dominant factor is going to be how many goals you can get. So like it
If he
should
gets
be
19 goals,
yeah,
like,
if he
sorry,
gets
at
19
7.5
goals
million.
but no bonus, then maybe that's fine. And the markets had him projected around 15 or 16 goals when he was at Bournemouth, and they've taken the markets down because he's moving across and they're not back up yet. But I was talking to Rob T, who also a friend of the pod, just to get an idea of where we thought they might come back up at. And actually, I think if you factor in that Spurs' points projections have gone up very slightly and Son's goals have gone down very slightly, then actually we could probably put Solanke around maybe where Isak is in sort of like this 18, 19 goal mark. That's not to say you can't get more. Obviously, that's the sort of central point of the estimation. But yeah, we're expecting him to score a few more goals, but it's not drastic. He's not suddenly up at 24, 25. But because also there's he had pens before, whereas now probably takes them. But does Son keep them, or I guess there's some uncertainty until we get them? But Son will keep
I think
them,
Son will keep them. Yeah.
So actually,
I think
losing
even more
losing
so.
pens is a fair bit of a loss.
Yeah.
And yeah, small bonus loss. But actually, if you offset that with a few goals, he's probably not a hugely better asset in FPL. I think the biggest change is that he's got a different set of fixtures for the opening six.
It's correct.
Which are a lot better. Bournemouth aren't great. I was looking at maybe starting with Tony and moving over to him. But yeah, I think he's a marginally better FPL asset, but we shouldn't be expecting that suddenly we've got a 25 goal striker at Spurs. But...
Boo.
Boo.
We'll see.
Emotions. Why emotions?
I do think obviously he didn't play at all today, so he won't play. Before we go. But a couple of key things. One is that our game isn't until the Monday night, so there's a fair amount of time. I suspect there's some kind of behind closed doors game this week. Bearing in mind we're not playing to the Monday night. Yeah, they'll do something. Even it's just.
Are you expecting him to start game week 1?
Oh yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we did have Ange come out and say he likes people hitting the ground running, and he's done before. But
Van der Ven's the sort of like benchmark to do, isn't it?
Beware of manager quotes.
Yeah. Van der Ven started 3 days after turning up for us. So maybe it's things. Like I say, it's the fact that we played again today, the fact that we're just still conceding these set piece goals and so forth. And you're like, well, what do you need? Well, we need bodies. We definitely need bodies in there. That it's too easy to win the first header for us. It's not. Most of the set piece goals we concede aren't even like the first header. They're like anyone can win that and put it back to where they want to, and then it's dangerous. You know what I mean?
I can tell you're a Spurs fan in that like one of the main talking points you've got for Dom Solanke signing is we won't have to concede as many set piece goals that you've been frustrated with all year.
Yeah, it's big though. It's a huge thing for us.
I'm not knocking
it.
Just thought it was amusing. That's not what I would have been thinking about.
Yeah. No.
But I didn't have to endure all of that. So
yeah. And
some of Paro Touré, Matt.
And it probably kills Brennan Johnson as an asset in FPL, I think.
You reckon?
Just based on
the right?
Just based on Kulusevski's been comfortably our best player. Comfortably our best player all pre-season, playing as the 9. But like, if you want a clue from pre-season, taking Brennan off at half time to then put Kulusevski on that right-hand side. He made 8 changes at half-time. The only 2 outfield players he kept on was Son and Kulusevski. There's kind of a reason for that. Like, and he put him back out to the right. Just feels like, to me, it just feels like, doesn't it just feel like Kulusevski, Kane, Son? It's just Kulusevski, Dom, Son. It's all right.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. I just wonder. It depends on what he's going to ask Son to do, because otherwise, because Ange is very clear in his way of attacking the byline, and I just can't see Kulusevski just getting down that right hand side and cutting back. Granted, I didn't watch a lot of the second half today. I watched the first half, but not the second. So maybe he did a lot of that today.
He got free plenty. He gets free plenty. You know, you go behind plenty. The fact is that Brennan Johnson has comfortably been our worst player in every single game of preseason. Like, not just bad, like we're like 1 out of 10 bad in every single game.
That's quite bad.
Like
I haven't been
he
watching,
has.
but that sounds
I don't.
pretty
I
bad.
feel. I don't think he's made more than a half. I think every single half is like get him off.
Fair enough.
Go
Like,
fact check
like,
that.
Fair enough.
like we have just ripped him out of the team every. I'd be genuinely, unbelievably shocked if Brennan Johnson lined up in the team on Monday night.
Because that's the
When
only
you,
45 that Kulu's played out on the right then, pre-season.
I drifted up in the previous game. He played he went out to the right for the second half. He plays 9 and then just clears off to the right in the second half. That's what he's been doing in most of these ones because he has to take Brennan off because he doesn't do anything.
Brennan played 75 against Munich, Bayern Munich.
Really, the one
and like 60 against Vissel Kobe, of course.
Vissel Kobe.
Very important game for our
very important game.
FPL planning.
But yeah, it's
not to invalidate the point.
Brennan will always look like a bad player because his worst thing is touching the ball. That's the worst aspect of Brennan Johnson is you never want him touching the ball. You want to set up things where he either arrives into the box and puts the ball in, or he gets in behind and cuts the ball back across to someone else to do. You know, he's a moments player. He's not a player that you give the ball and do the stuff with, but and you never know. You never know. The first 2 games are Leicester and Everton, but Newcastle and Arsenal, that's definitely not going to be Brennan Johnson.
I think even if like there's Min's uncertainty around picking him, then what Solanke joins from an FPL perspective, not even just Min's, that's another Spurs asset we might want. Like I've got 3, some people are looking at 4 in their teams to start with. Son's still good, Porro's still good, Vicario's still good, Van de Ven's not a bad 4.5, Udogi's still good. Like there are lots of other players, and there are other 6.5s. So Johnson is a good 6.5 if you think he plays, but you can easily move him to someone else and get another Spurs player somewhere else. So
I think the maximum you could ever like if you're adjusting his minutes, the maximum you could ever put him would be 65 on Brennan. I just don't see a world in which you could put more than that on him. But I think it's very unlikely he plays much. Not much, but because we've got a lot of games. We've got Europa this season. We didn't have that space. But also the other thing is that we know this week that prior to Chelsea going for Pedro Neto, and probably what triggered the Pedro Neto move is that we were in for Pedro Neto.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like they weren't going to get Pedro Neto to be like, yeah, son, you don't need to play. They were getting Pedro Neto because they want a dribbly man out on the right hand side. That's the other reason why it's like it's all a bit.
You still in for Eze? Spurs.
Well, that's
another one.
That's the other one, and the other doors are closing. You know, I think I've heard that Ryan Cherky maybe we might be looking at as another option that's there, but I do think as this window goes on for Man City, who clearly are, Man City were looking at Pedro Neto as well we're looking at Pedro Neto. So you've got 2 teams that have money. Man City have got money because of the Alvarez deal.
Oh, it's not getting to that.
And we still have comfortably have enough money to spend on 60, 70 million on a player. But yeah, I still think one of those 2 teams will go heavy for Eze, and I think it'll be in the next few days.
Does Solanke remain a 90-minute man if you've got other options? Let's say Eze comes in and you've got Johnson and Son and Kulusevski and Richarlison and
Richarlison, yeah.
I mean, they're probably not all going to be fit at the same time, but is Dom still 90-minute guy at Spurs? Do you reckon?
I'm not sure. He's not going to be as secured as he was at Bournemouth, obviously. And if Richarlison stays, then yeah, there's a risk. I just don't see, unless he's having an absolute horror show, in which case, we're not going to be looking to pick him anyway. I think he will spend most of the game on the pitch. So if you're not going to place him at, I'd have him 80 minutes plus. To be honest,
Yeah.
I'd have him 80 minutes plus, but he's not going to be in the, what you'd see on review with your 86, 87. I wouldn't have that wouldn't have it quite there, just because the players are there.
There's some uncertainty in it,
yeah. But as you dial his up, it does potentially dial Son's down. But is we know that it last season. If Richarlison very rare, like quite often would come off on like 70 minutes or so if he was playing number 9, and quite often what then happened was Son would stay on the pitch and move into the 9. So you could bring someone on and do all that stuff. But I'm like, if the number 9's always on the pitch, like Son's not getting younger. And one of the worst things we've done is like overuse him realistically over the last few years.
I mean, if we're going to put anything on pre-season as well, there's absolutely no reason why Decky couldn't play in the middle there as well. Kulusevski couldn't move in there if you wanted to do Dom off at 75, Kulu into the middle, and Brennan on type vibes. I mean, that's available, right? That's there as a possibility now.
Yeah, there is. This is the issue. There's 4 attacking roles in the sort of left 10, and which is Maddo's, but we know that Maddo rarely is a 90-minute man again. So quite often last season, we had Maddison would go off and Kulusevski would come off the right into the 10, and then Johnson would come on. So that can happen. We could have now Solanke comes off and Kulusevski goes to the 9 and Johnson comes on. We also got Werner who could come on for the last 10-15 minutes.
Werner, forgot about him. So we should
put
the defenders in.
And then Richarlison as well. And we want another attacking player in there. It does get a bit awkward. It would be really, really, really nice over the next few days to get some kind of clarity on it. But I guess as soon as Solanke came in, I was like, well, I'll just put him in.
Yep.
Adam, have you put him in?
Yeah, I've put him in.
JC?
Yeah, he's in.
He's in.
I even changed his kit on my screen, even though it's not updated.
So when we look at our drafts, he's in a Bournemouth kit for me and Baker, and he's in a Spurs kit for you.
I thought I'd get it in the right kit.
Outstanding.
This is when like people think, what do the old analytics community do? And there's like, they all think everyone's like
digging into the
results.
FPL
What they're actually able to do
HTML
is,
code.
and change the kits before the players
move. Important bit. That's what wins the game.
Extra EV there.
That's what wins the game.
Yeah.
That's what wins the game. And you change the fixture as well.
Emotional
not just the kit.
Yeah.
What do you think this is? Amateur hour?
Easy. Not that hard. I'll teach you.
All you actually have to do is change the name of the player. You don't even change the rest of it. Which way round did you do it? That's an interesting one. Did you actually put the kit in and the fixture in, or did you actually just change Solanke's name from someone else?
I changed the kit and the fixture.
You could have just.
Yeah, I could have just put.
You could have just put Solanke instead.
That's not optimal, JC.
Well, he was already in. So. Oh well.
You could have put Richarlison in there and just changed his name to Solanke.
I hadn't thought of that. Smart. Yeah. Oh well.
We should probably move on to some drafts.
Is this what the podcast listeners want to hear about?
They want to see your draft. They want to see a man.
My draft
was top 1K, top 2K.
I've got Richarlison. No. I have put quadruple Spurs in just because you can at the moment.
Yeah, it's important to know. You can. Do you know what? I hadn't done it until you said, and now I've immediately I better take it in.
I think the issue is that when you have to make a transfer, you have to sell one of them. You can't sell Gabriel for Saliba. So the team's got to be right when you go into game week 1, which I don't think it will be. I'm not intending to do this, but it's a viable draft. So if nothing changes, maybe.
And if we sign Eze, you get 5.
Oh God, yeah. Are you guys looking at? Don't take Isak off us, please.
It's quite expensive.
I'll read it out for the audio listeners. We've got Vicario in goal, Porro, Trent, and Gabriel at the back. Son, Eze, Bruno Fernandes, Saka, Solanke in his Spurs kit, João Pedro, and Isak are then a bench of whatever 4.0, but Danny Ward in here. And Kunku, Dunk, and Konsa. So this is the nomium, as people are calling it, despite that being a very silly term. Son and Saka are premiums, basically. I don't know what this is about. But yeah, I think Haaland drafts are viable. Salah drafts are viable. I don't think both is viable. And I do think none is viable. I think if you put both in, you're too restricted in what you're doing elsewhere. And you've got these two big shiny players that are better than everyone else, but I don't think it's worth it. Haaland's a lot of money. Haaland's very expensive. In fact, he's what, 6 million more than the next most expensive striker. So you take him out, and you got 6 million already, which maybe for flexibility purposes is nice because you can start with him and easily get to a seller. But yeah, I don't think there's anything. Well, apart from quadruple Spurs and double Spurs defense, I was gonna say I don't think there's anything too controversial in here. But feel free to pick it apart.
No, I feel with if you like you said, like with both Haaland and Salah, I also feel like the first transfer you make is going to have to move one of them because you're going to want to do something with that money. And
Yeah,
the fixtures have been set out in such a way that I think if let's say the Ipswich, I mean this isn't happening, but if like Ipswich for Liverpool was game week 1 and then Ipswich was game week 3 or 4 for City, I think you might have seen some people starting with one and moving to the other. More so.
right, sure.
I don't think
Yeah.
because it's game week 2. Obviously, you have to take a -4 to make that happen if you want that fixture twice, and no one in the world is doing that. So, yeah, I can't see going with both is good.
Because then equally, Haaland's got what, Arsenal in game week 5. So like, if you wanted to hit the best of Salah and Haaland, you start with Salah, you go to Haaland, and then you got to get back to Salah. Because Salah's got a good game in 4 or 5, I think, and Haaland's got a tough one in 5. So like, and then you got to go back off them.
And then
so
all your transfers are focused on just those two players.
Yeah, including probably a hit or maybe even your wild card at some
every
point.
time.
Yeah. So I don't think that's. I think, but kind of once you get your head around that, if you go, okay, I'm probably going to have to go without either Salah or Haaland against Ipswich in 1 or 2. Then you're like, okay, I've got to do a scary fixture. Then why not do both? Basically,
why not do both?
There's no, because I think if it's close, if it was like close between putting both of them in and not, I think both would be more viable because you go, okay, I don't want the FOMO. I don't want to go without. But I think it is a little expensive in terms of the EV that you're spending to do that and the flexibility. Without both is quite hard to get to one, I guess.
Is it neither though? Because one of the things where I looked at, if I was to go both, I actually found it quite hard to make transfers, almost tight space. So I feel like there is like a utopian world where going both and then say wildcard in 6 could be like, if you got lucky, the best way to get to wildcarding without having made a transfer. It is possible in that sense. And if that did happen, then it's like, oh, that's worked out lovely. But football doesn't rarely work out that way.
I think also
nice.
you're either forced into having to sell Salah or Haaland for funds, or making an unusual move because you've got to sell a 5.5 and you've already got both of the good ones in.
Yes.
So you're kind of stuck. So you're kind of restricted in that sense.
Yeah. You're fishing. Every single move is a very small pool you're looking at.
And the model projections across various sources and our solvers are kind of suggesting that actually putting both of them in isn't significantly, if at all, better across the first 5 games. So like lines with one or neither or both, one or neither, are coming out comparable, if not ahead. So you're foregoing flexibility and you're foregoing a bit of expected value. And that might be fine if you really have FOMO over those 2 games. You've just got to be aware that you're buying some comfort with that. You're spending a bit of expected value to get that comfort, and you're allowed to do that. I'm not knocking that, but if you think it's like this is going to be way better, maybe it gets more points. It does. Who knows? Maybe a team with 10 million in the bank gets more points. Normally, a team who starts in game week 2 is ahead of me within the first few weeks because why not? But I think there are plenty of reasons not to get both. Not only just it doesn't tend to score as highly, because we get really fixated on these premium single players and the captaincy, and obviously Haaland game week 2 home to Ipswich that's a lot of points. It's not like you're going without him saying I don't think he'll score. You're just saying I think I can make that up and more with the 6.5 million.
With the 6.5 million.
And
this, based on something like this, in terms of the path that would lead to, would that probably lead to Salah coming in 4?
Likely, yeah, because I think game week 4 is a bit fiddly for captaincy. I think what I'd more likely do with this team is, I can captain Bruno or Eze. I think Bruno's got Southampton and Eze's got who.
But
Which
Saka's got Spurs
score.
and then City, hasn't he? And
he does,
obviously Son has the Newcastle and Arsenal in 3-4. So it's like there is that space where you attack those couple of opening 2 to 3 fixtures with those, see how that plays out, and then you move one of those twin tens, as it were, onto it. But also, I do still think it's like Palmer, like nobody's got Palmer in their team.
Well, they've priced him correctly.
They priced him correctly, and nobody's got Foden in their team, and in that space. And
I guess they're both game week 1 doubts. Is that right?
Yeah,
partly. But you suddenly get to game week 3 and Foden scored a hat trick against Ipswich, and you go, oh Christ, how do I get to Foden? Where does he fit? But then if you rush him in, he's got Arsenal in 5. So yeah. I think, I mean, you have to make sacrifices somewhere. You can't own everyone. So I don't think there's a viable Saka, Son, Palmer, and Foden team. You'd have to go without Isak.
Do you think the introduction? I mean, obviously, like I say, Solanke was already a viable choice, wasn't he? But he has now suddenly got better opening fixtures, and it really is still the opening fixtures we're looking at, because we do get transfers and we do have wild cards and all those type of stuff. Do you think that Solanke moving to Tottenham impacts the decision that might see more people go the Salah way than go the Haaland way?
I think so. Yeah, I think actually this front line or something similar. I think before Solanke had joined and before Tony wasn't involved in the Brentford game today, I think I was quite keen to start with Isak, Tony, and João Pedro or Muniz or something like that, and then Tony can move to Solanke when Bournemouth's fixtures got better, and try and fit Salah in by probably an Nkunku downgrade or something here, if I wanted to. Whereas I think before that, actually, when I wasn't so keen, I think it was probably Haaland, Isak, and a cheapie, so João Pedro, Muniz, Armstrong, whoever. But I think Son's maybe a slightly worse asset now, just because of some of the goal share, very marginally. So I think that would push me towards Salah more so. That's a very small needle, and maybe that's a misstep. But yeah, I don't know. And also, Haaland didn't score today, so probably shouldn't put him in. Yeah,
it's over.
If he scored a hat trick, I think we would all been there. I'm joking. Of course.
Are you?
Well, I don't know. I'm joking about myself. I wouldn't be swaying that way, but people do. That's why when Haaland first signed, wasn't it? Darwin got a goal in the Community Shield and Haaland missed some chances, and everyone was like, "Oh, maybe we don't want him. Swap back to Kane."
He scored five goals in his first 3 games or something like that, including he scored like 3 hat tricks in 5 games, and everyone went, "Ah, shit, yeah, that's what we thought he was going to do."
Oops.
The thing when those things happen though in pre-season, like why I never had issues with it is we talk about the pushing of the needle. Like the if your decision is, if you're 51 Haaland, 49 Salah, and he blanks today, and they look a bit crappy, and you start thinking that Rodri's not going to play the first game.
Yeah.
It's absolutely viable that you went from 51, 49 Salah to Haaland to go 49, 51 and flip it. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like everyone says, oh, why did you switch from that to that? Like, what is this? Like, it's like, well, I didn't start both at 100 and naught. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah,
Like I
yeah.
was somewhere between that. And I just slightly moved, and that's okay.
Yeah, I still like mocking, but I agree. Yeah, it's funny. But also,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'll do the same thing. And actually, I think what I'm sure when I was solving it, I wasn't super sure on Gabriel. I think I'm probably still will go with him, but there's some doubts about whether he's going to start or it might be Calafiori. But then Timber had a knock. And I'm sure I did some solves where I went like, okay, I'll ban Gabriel and see, and it's probably just going to be the same, but it'll put Saliba in. And I'm sure it swapped from like a Salah to a Haaland structure
Mm-mm.
because I went, I don't want that Arsenal defender. And you realize quite how close these little things are. And actually, like suddenly, if Eze gets injured, then you might change 8 players because that means that the structure has to change, and therefore you're on Haaland instead of Salah.
Mm.
So all these knock-on effects and the way the players interact is, I think that's why it's amusing because a small thing happens and you go, oh, change my entire draft, whole team changes, this guy's out, doesn't fit anymore. Whereas in actual fact, what's happened is, you know, the markets have
Yeah.
slightly cooled on this team, or one guy got injured.
I I haven't been paying
But yeah,
attention to sort of discussions around minutes for a few of these players, and I'm thinking primarily the ones that we really haven't seen in pre-season because they've only just come back. So we know,
yeah,
we know from the City lineup today, right? They played with Nico O'Reilly, James McAtee, Oscar Bob because none of them are back. But
yeah,
loads and loads of drafts I see around analytics, particularly have Trent and Saka. And I understand that these players are obviously great value on a longer term horizon. But what's the confidence level on players like Trent actually starting game week 1 when Connor Bradley is just there? And we all know the story around Saka and that because I imagine you don't want to go into game week 1 with 17.5 million pounds worth of players that don't start.
yeah. I mean, I guess I have got Joe Pedro and Concert to come on, but that's
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think certainly what I do, I don't know if this is what all analytics managers do, is like my error bars on my certainty are massive a few weeks out, and they just gradually get smaller and smaller and smaller. And obviously, I'm only worried about Trent now because he didn't play, whereas before I was like, well, he might play in the last game or he might not. So actually, at the minute, I can't really say. I don't
Sure.
know. Probably fine. And the same with Saka and obviously like Tony today. So that's why I try and leave most of my effort to drafting in the last week because we don't know things early on, and obviously you can spend time reacting to what's going on 4 friendlies out. But for example, yeah, if Trent is suddenly looking like he's not going to start, and there's rumors around the training ground, or I don't know, we get a leak or something, then yeah, I'm still a bit worried about it. But I still feel like, especially Saka, like Saka's should just be straight in. We know the way
Yeah.
Arteta's been with him.
Mm-mm.
But yeah, I think now is when I start to get worried about these players rather than 2 weeks ago. There's no point being worried about Trent. I could see, okay, like he might be and he might not. I can see how that affects the team and play around with it. But actually, trying to do nitty gritty X-Min's evaluation if you're not in the last week leading up to the game. I have got the freedom that I'm quite free this week, so I can put lots of time into it, which I know everyone doesn't have. But yeah, I feel like it's not wasted time doing it earlier because if you enjoy it, that's fun. But
Sure.
if I only had, I don't know, 5 hours to put into planning my X-Mins and assessing players and reading up on stuff, I'd spend all of those in the last week. I wouldn't put any of it earlier on. It's only if I've got more time, I'll have a look. So yeah, I'm still uncertain on Gabriel and Trent. Saka less so. I guess Eze might still be on the move. João Pedro played 45 minutes today, I think. Isak's fine. Solanke should be in. But yeah, there's plenty others that still need assessment and seeing how they run. So
Yeah.
I'll be a lot more thorough this week. I think this is a kind of structural thing, but
Yeah, I just wonder how binary you have to think on in game week 1 when you do, as you say, you have, you do have Duncan Konza there as
yeah.
as cover, and then you obviously benefit from having that player from game week 2 when you don't have to make a move to move him out. So
Yeah. If I thought they weren't going to start, I wouldn't start with them.
Fair
I don't
enough.
think I'd pick a player. So like if I think Trent, if I'm pretty sure Trent isn't starting, but he's starting 2 onwards, I would imagine that the model, the solver, whatever we want to call it, would tell me that it's not worth putting him in. And actually, like, I can gain enough by picking someone else or starting with, I don't know, Virgil or Gvardiol or moving a few things around.
Yeah.
To do that. But I guess that's the kind of questions I will be asking this week when I go and run a solve. I'll go, okay, what happens if Trent's out? And then I know. And then if I get a leak, I go, oh, okay, that's this scenario. So a lot of it is stress testing it and seeing what happens if there's, because if I, for example, if I solve it and go, okay, what happens if Trent isn't in game week 1, but then he's back afterwards, and the solver's going like, okay, the points are saying just stick with Trent anyway, you can't gain enough, then I don't have to worry about whether Trent's starting or not. I just put him in and hope he starts, because I know that in the scenario that he doesn't start, I should still have picked him. If that makes sense?
Yeah.
So occasionally you realize that the threshold is like below, but I'd imagine not starting game week 1 is enough to pick a similar asset for most players. I actually can't think of one where I'd still go with him. But
I just think back to the how weird that was it. Arsenal and Man U had a blank game week 1 a few years ago. How weird that must have been. That must have been really strange.
Yeah,
I think it was City Man United. I think
City Man United.
Yeah, City Man United.
Because they had a weird double game week late. Yeah. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, should we start with Bruno still? I'm like, he's not a great game. What do you mean?
Do you want to move on?
Where you at, Adam?
Where am I at? So,
yeah.
Well, I was. So I'm in a couple of places at the moment. I'm actually more
both
so.
Yours?
Yeah, so they're both mine. So the draft on the left. So the draft on the left is where I pretty much am, with one kind of small change, but I'll talk about that. And then the right hand side is basically what this team looks like if I have to force Haaland in. So because I did come out and say the other day that triple captain in game week 2 is very appealing, and having that home Ipswich fixture when I feel like the minutes are most secure feels like a really great opportunity to use that chip and get it out of the way as well. So on the left, I've got Raya, Gabriel, Vardiol, Porro. You notice there's no Trent there. So Salah, Gibbs White, Son, and Odegaard, João Pedro, Isak, and Solanke. It's the same front three as you had. And then 4.0 keeper, Harwood Bellis, Anthony Robinson, and Emil Smith-Rowe. Because they're great. Basically, they're great for game week 3, where things start getting a bit sticky for the Spurs boys. And yeah, so the only difference I had here was actually I played straight into he's got another assist today. He's looked amazing again today. And I had Jan Kumba-Minter in instead of Gibbs White, which I thought was fun. And actually left me with $1 million in the bank, and it just felt weird having $1 million in the bank when people are stressing about what to do. So I really like this draft for the first 4 weeks. Again, there will be transfers to get more Liverpool in 4 and then back to Arsenal in 6. But again, as the game week 1 goes, it's triple Spurs. It feels great. Isak captain. Everything feels good. But moving it on to just the one on the right hand side, I just wanted to sort of highlight how you mentioned. You mentioned if, say, Eze was being taken out, you might have to change 8 players, for example. I mean, like Haaland, literally putting him in literally makes you change like everyone. But I've changed Raya to Martinez.
Yeah.
I've changed Salah to Eze, Son to Soboslai, because I want the Liverpool win there. And then João Pedro to Haaland. There's 4 big changes there.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel. I'm not sure whether I feel as comfortable there, although I do get then the option to triple captain Haaland in game week 2.
Mm.
But it's a lot of sacrifice. I feel like there's a lot of sacrifice there.
Why don't you triple captain Mo in game week 1?
There is.
You go in. You go into the game.
This is it.
Yeah.
I'm,
Put your emotions in.
yeah, exactly. I am going to the game in. I am going to Portland Road.
It's not as good as Haaland at home. I'll give you
No.
that. So what do you feel like you're losing by bringing Haaland in? Apart from obviously Salah.
I just think the combination of Salah and Son is better than Eze and Szoboszlai. So Salah,
Yeah.
Son, and João Pedro
Right.
as a 3 is better than Eze, Szoboszlai, and Haaland. I mean, the keeper, I mean, is what it is. I mean, they all get around about 3-4 points a game anyway, so there's no difference there. I don't know. They're probably pretty close. I don't know. I haven't run this through. I've only had this in the app. I haven't had time to actually run this through. I don't know anything. Scout Hub, team review, anything to see what actually drops off, and which one's a bit, better structurally and has higher expected points or value. I don't know yet.
Yeah, I mean, you could even make a couple of little changes on that. Like Smith Rowe, if you said Smith Rowe goes to Rodgers, for example, then Gibbs White becomes Eze, and then you go Eze back. Do you know what I mean? You'd probably like, providing he stays and does all that.
Or even just do Raya back down to Martinez.
Or Raya to Martinez, and you get those in. So it is interesting when you sent me that draft, and I do look at the Mo ones with Solanke as that person there, and I'm like, it's pretty good. It is, and I asked you to do it that way, didn't I? Where I said, like, yeah, you've got Mo in, now put Haaland in and see what you take out.
Yeah, because it forces you to just.
I've looked at it the other way around, is because I've had Haaland in all of them, and then you're like, God, where do I now spend all this money when I move him? When I move Haaland down to João Pedro or Menez, one of those two. But either way, suddenly it's like, well, I've got 9 million now to spend across the rest of my team. It's like, but it's Haaland.
Would these have a wild card penciled in at any particular point, or would that be open or even different across the 2?
I'm relatively indifferent. I'm pretty much of the opinion you can wildcard in 4 and wildcard in 6, and they're both pretty much the same thing, because either way you're going to want to make transfers in 4 or 6 to get assets in anyway. So I think I think 4 and 6 is more based on circumstance rather than anything else. I think if you're in a good situation, then you can probably transfer through 4 and then wildcard in 6. And I think if you get yourself in a bit of a situation where some injuries come in, or someone gets dropped, etc., outside of the periphery of your transfers that you're going to make, then wildcard 4, transfers 6. I think they're interchangeable. I really think they are.
Yeah, I think there's still scenarios where you sort of transfer through both, or kind of
if you get,
one and
especially if you get quite lucky, for it and not have to make other transfers in that sense. But I think there are some real 6. Arsenal, obviously, Chelsea, the Brighton and Forest games at home. You've got quite a few teams who've got the double home. So Arsenal have got the double home, Chelsea have got the double home, Brentford have got the double home. Where they a nice couple of pairs of fixtures where you're like, I do like that more. Whereas I think in 4, it's kind of Watkins and Salah is the bits where you look at it.
I think if you're going to wildcard in 4, you probably want a slightly different game week 1 team, because you can make some more gains on 1 to 3, as well as playing it in 4. Whereas actually the team that gets to game week 6 and then wildcards is pretty similar to the team that will play through. It's just whether you want to play it or whether you're forced to through injuries or whatever. Whereas 4 is probably going to be a bit different. I think game week 4 is probably a Haaland team rather than a Salah one.
Makes sense.
I don't know. I was just thinking about what you guys said on your end of season pod last year. I went back and watched it.
Mm.
see if we've remembered our learnings. Because you talked about attacking the season with, there was three things you can attack with, which is chip strategy, your player picks, and your captaincy. So obviously, triple captain game week 2 is kind of both in one go. But I think that's viable if that's one of your ones of like, I want to dial a bit of risk up and get something different, as well as not going something that's really going to hamper me later. Because you might have had Haaland anyway. You've not like moved him in to do the triple captaincy. These are probably both quite similar teams, I'd imagine. So if you wanted to do that, I think that's quite a good way to kind of bite into that risk appetite. I probably won't do it because I'll save it, but I don't think playing it in 2 is like, it's not an expensive. If we talk about like, if you're solving for whatever the optimal team is under whatever conditions you're doing, every time you make a little tweak from that, well, some of it is like testing it because there's an assumption that you've made that maybe isn't quite true. But if you assume that kind of team that you maybe don't quite like because it's got Douglas Luiz in it or whatever, every time you want to go, oh, I'd rather play Haaland and triple captain him, you're almost buying that preference. So I think triple captaining Haaland in 2 is a pretty cheap preference to buy. Whereas doing, I was going to say bench boost 1, wildcard 2. I think that's a bit more expensive of like an attacking chip strategy. So I think here there's a few options for, do you want to attack early? And that should probably be whether you want to go Haaland or Salah, because both of them look quite strong.
Is that a question?
It's kind of in the balance.
Yeah, because you said if you said wildcard 4 might lean more towards a Haaland team. So would that be another way to dial up a little bit more and say, right, I'm going to wildcard in 4. This is going to happen, and I'm going to attack the first 3 game weeks, triple captain Haaland in 2, and then wildcard in 4 and basically start again with everything else in front of me.
Yeah, I think it's quite a viable strategy. It's what I have seen a lot of analytics managers looking at it. It's not like it's one that's some crazy idea people come up with. I'm not saying that if analytics aren't on it that it's crazy, but
I think Simon was looking at it. So that probably
the numbers come up well.
Crazy.
He's crazy analytics like me in a different way. Wildcard 4 is very viable, and the value of our wildcard this season is much less. So playing it in a slightly unusual, especially the first one, because we don't know where the doubles are. We don't have a mystery chip to deal with yet. So playing it in 4, I think, is, especially if you can pick a team that's competitive for the first 3 weeks, that's a bit different. That's not a bad way to kind of go, okay. The issue is that you are gambling on your wildcard 4 team might have to be a bit less exciting because you need it to last. You don't have your safety net. But your game at 1 to 3 team can be a little bit different. So I'd attack pre-wildcard rather than with the wildcard. Playing it where it is the attacking, if that makes sense. Because otherwise you're attacking with the chip and the players. Because you're going, okay, I'm going to wildcard. And if Minter hasn't started and you go, he's going to start now, I'm going to wildcard into Minter, then you're buying a problem and you don't have your wildcard to fix it. So that's possibly a way to do it, but you don't have to do both. You could triple captain 1 and wildcard later, or you could triple captain Haaland in 2, or you could attack it with 4. I think bench boost was the one I was quite looking at. Is there something here? But I think sadly it's not quite there. As enticing as the free hit bench boost 1 looks, the 15-man free hit. Then wildcard in 2.
It is an interesting thing though, isn't it? Because bench boost 1 is the only time, and treat it as a free hit. So wildcard straight out of it, because no one ever gets to do that. That's
you can't
unheard of.
Do it.
Yes, it is. But to have a whole set of 15 players and then just say see you later to them.
Yep. But then your wildcard 2's got to be pretty.
Is it your mate? I wonder if what if the mystery chip's that? What if the mystery chip allows us to
what a free hit bench boost?
Yeah.
They're
going to call it a free boost. They're not particularly original.
I don't know.
Maybe that's what they'll do.
I feel like it's got to be something simple to program into the game.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I'm not. I think we're possibly wasting our time talking about what the mystery ship might be.
Yeah.
But I don't think they've decided. Basically, I'd be surprised if they know.
Let's have a look
I
at
know.
yours. Let's have a look at yours, Baker. Let's
Baker's
move on to
team.
yours.
Food for thought there, Adam.
Yes.
But, I
Yeah,
like
definitely,
okay.
definitely. You know, as we said, I mean, I've kind of half moved back to this Salah uh, draft because I'm going to be at Portman Road, and I wonder is that it's genuinely I'm getting
From
torn
our
now.
learning, this definitely isn't our learning. That going to a game on game week
it's
1
not, is
means we
it?
have to move this player in.
It's not,
It's like
but
the opposite of what we said we were going to
I'm
do.
excited for
it is
the
completely
24-25 season review to be that worked really well. What I should do is go to more games where my players are playing because it inspires them. Is that what you see it being?
Yeah, something like that.
Maybe. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Nice.
As you said,
I'm in.
like it makes sense.
Why don't you just go to the Etihad and get tickets for that? Game week 2.
Okay,
No?
me to just try and get in there so that I can triple captain him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
yeah.
watched,
Maybe I should just do that.
I did once watch a who was it? Newcastle beat Brentford 5-1, and it was a consolation 90th minute penalty by Tony, and I had triple Newcastle defense, and I was there, so I saw a triple clean sheet wipe out in front of me. It was great. It was very. So I was like, oh my god, Dan Burn, who I owned as well, he handballed it for the penalty. That was a moment. 5-0
That's
up.
a moment.
No need. I'm like, oh god, lost all the bonus.
Nightmare.
Funny then. Yeah.
Nightmare.
So
Baker,
don't go to games. Don't watch football.
don't watch football.
Yeah.
Baker, these are yours. Talk us through them.
So on the right here, for those watching, is the team that I was on pre-Solanke. Felt like I was really comfortable.
Oh, did I get these the wrong way around?
On this team is they're fine. They're fine.
No, I know, but
yeah, that's right.
mine were the other way around. So okay, carry on.
Well. Oh, good. Which was Haaland. I've been Haaland only probably since about the first week. Is I've sat in that space where I'm not comfortable with the keeper. I've got Henderson in goal at the moment. It's partially because I really hate Flecken. I've got just
I think I'd be more comfortable in Henderson now that Johnston's looking to leave.
Yeah, I like that more.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure on Palace. You know, I'm quite down on Palace with the Elise move coming out. You know, it's like hasn't only won one game where Elise didn't play. You know, since joining, it's a big deal. Obviously, Mateta comes off the World Cup. If there's a goes, if Gahey goes, if either of those go, I'm something like, do I want to just be stuck with Palace's keeper? I'm not as convinced on that as I am. You know, even I keep seeing
stuck
like
with Brentford's keeper.
I'm starting to maybe start with West Ham's keeper again. The fixtures are terrible, but the fact is that they keep buying players. Tadebo's fantastic.
Yeah, that's true.
Like the first 11, if you put it down for West Ham, you're like, wow. I mean, Paqueta's still playing somehow, but he is playing. It's definitely not going to be Matt Sells and Flecken is definitely something where the fixtures are there, but that's definitely my team, my emotion of my side.
I think like my rule of thumb is I will pick the wrong 4.5 keeper, and I go, okay, that's fine. So I'll just pick one. I'll pick one. It'll be the wrong one. Move on. Yeah, there we are.
Exactly. So I had Porro, Vardiol, and at the moment I've got your lovely Lewis Hall.
Very nice.
I really want someone for the first 2 weeks. I'm not bothered after 2 weeks. I like not so much.
Yeah,
not so much
because Barco can come in, can't he?
Barco's fixtures are fantastic.
Is he going to play?
Yeah, but Konza, you can play Konza 3, 4, 5, 6 easy. Yeah. I mean, the one on the right, I've got a bit of fancy and put Mattson.
You got Mattson,
but it's
might not play.
Yeah, so it's probably just Konza anyway. It's like you. It's Mattson until the minutes say otherwise, and then it's Konza. But I look at Leicester, Everton, Wolves, Ipswich, and then you've obviously got Fulham and Bournemouth in 8 and 9 as well. So I'm like, if I needed to just play them all the time, yeah. Mikolenko, I don't mind for the first couple. Not well, first one. I don't mind him.
First one. There we are.
Yeah, but it's
Wildcard two. There you go. Sorted.
but, but I just quite like the player in Hall. Now you're a Newcastle fan, so I'm going to come back to you on that one.
Okay.
And then my midfield was Bruno and Kunku and I'm very close on Son or Saka. I think if Saka is absolutely fine, I probably will be there. There's definitely some heartbeat head. Like today, I see Leicester put out a full team and they lose 3-0 to Lons, and I'm like, oh God,
Champions
this
League team.
tweet.
Lons.
But still, like, absolutely hammered again. And people are saying, like, I saw a tweet and it basically said, has a manager ever been sacked before the season starts? And you're like, the idea of him there. And then I had Haaland, Menez, and Isak was my front three. That was, I was surprised that Pedro started today. That seemed to just suddenly come straight back into fruition. But
Did only play 45, but
he did. Scored a good goal though.
He
Scored a very good goal. Scored a very good goal. And then Solanke, I was like, right, if he comes in, what would I just on this team? What are my changes? You don't have to change a huge amount. I basically just took Maatsen down to Konsa, and Bruno changes to Gordon.
And Son becomes Saka.
Son just switched to Saka.
Well, obviously, knock-on effect.
Knock-on effect.
Yeah, well.
Knock-on effect. Because simply, like, Solanke coming in is a tiny little dip against Son.
I know, yeah.
It is a tiny little dip against Son.
I just thought it was amusing. There was like a structural change, and I just swapped my 10 million midfielders.
I just swapped my 10 million midfielder.
But yeah, no,
because they are the 51, 49 that I was saying about. And I do think
I'm with you.
Should it be there? And I don't think that's a huge. It doesn't feel to me like particularly huge sacrifices for me in a Haaland team. So I think it's very easy for me to look at it and go, okay, that's not a huge amount. But the interesting one was when I just changed to this team on the left. Then Adam sent through and he was like, Salah. And I'm like, but you can do that. I'm like, maybe Solanke does open up the Mo draft more than it does the Haaland draft. It is part of that kind of quite emotional part of it, isn't it? Because it does feel like you're very much of I went on Camp Mo versus I went on Camp Hurling. My one thing is on both of these drafts, whatever it is that I would almost certainly bring Mo still in on 4. And there's a couple of ways you can do it, but it's slightly easier on my original draft. So on the original draft, if Isak goes to Pedro in 4, and you just stick Son to Mo, it's a pretty easy way of doing it. There's another way of doing it. You could do Haaland to Watkins, and that enables you go Bruno to Mo. There's a couple of ways in which you would do it, but I do think I would end up bringing Mo in and 4, unless we see something very odd over the next few weeks. So, yeah, like you say about the flexibility of a Mo and Haaland draft, having it for 5 weeks, I'm not sure I enjoy that. Having it maybe for 2 weeks, if I did it for 4 and 5, I don't mind that. I don't mind that anywhere near as much. But I think I'd only probably do that if I was definitely wildcarding in 6. But you would also, by doing it that way, you wildcard with not a huge number of transfers in your bank.
Yeah, I think that's a tricky one. It's like when they said you could roll through the wild card, it completely changed what I was thinking about what we were doing.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah.
Never seen that before. That's crazy.
Moving it to 5 transfers, I'm like, well,
I've played games where there's more rolling. I'm like, oh, I know. It changes it, but I kind of know how to deal with that. Roll through the wild card.
It's big.
Think about with that. Yeah,
it's a really big deal. So
yeah.
I need to go and have a think about a Salah draft. I need to have a think, and like I say, it's once have got a bit myself emotionally invested to. Well, I'm going to have Haaland. Do I not? You are a Newcastle fan,
I am.
so we've shown 5 drafts.
Mhm.
Only one of them had Anthony Gordon in, and
Yep.
only mine had a Newcastle defender in.
Yep. Any questions?
What are the questions?
What are the
Fixtures are
questions?
good.
They are good. Yeah. Well, I mean, Southampton's the first one. Obviously, that's the main big one. Let me just get them off. Who have we got then? Bournemouth, Spurs, Wolves, Fulham, City. Yeah, the first 4 definitely. Bournemouth and Wolves away, we're not as good. I think, especially the defenders. I think there is uncertainty around who's going to start. I think we've got Botman and Lascelles are both out injured for the foreseeable. Botman's maybe back sooner than we thought. Trippier's still not really sure whether he's staying or going. I think if Trippier goes, Livramento is pretty nailed at right back, so he'd be the pick, I reckon. But more for Min's certainty over Hall. I think Hall's a bit more attacking and a bit better goal threat, and assist threat. But Hall I think he has started every preseason game, or at least
Yeah,
most of them. So he's certainly looking to be like trusted a bit more. So if I was looking for a short-term punt, I think I would go Hall for slightly better upside over Burn. But I wouldn't put it past Howe to go Trippier, Shah, Gehi, Burn if Gehi comes. Whereas if Gehi doesn't join or another centre back doesn't join, I think Burn will play left centre back for the foreseeable. I don't really see Kelly's more a rotation option or cover.
yeah.
I don't think Kelly's going to be starting uh soon unless there's a surprise. So it probably is Burn and Hall unless we buy another centre back, at least to start with. Shah is nailed. He's fine, but obviously he's 5.5 million. And then it's Trippier or Livramento right back, but that depends who's at the club. I think we've got a few more options on the wing now. We have now got Gordon and Barnes fit. Barnes was out for a long time last year and is a really good player. So I saw I think it was the Planet FPL correspondent was talking about he thought it'd be Barnes and Murphy starting game week 1, which I'm not sure about. I feel like Gordon's still good enough to be commanding that position, but
Well,
Gordon
Gordon
can
hasn't
play on the right. Murphy's been good. So like there are 2 spots and 3 players.
he hasn't started
So
pre-season yet, though, is he, Gordon? He's not
he
back yet.
he
He played last
started.
night. He played
Yeah,
last night.
he
Played 45
started.
minutes.
We
Was
had
probably the best player I've ever seen.
we had a double header. So we had a game
Mm.
on Friday and yesterday or today. So there was like different starting 11s in both. So
Yeah,
Barnes played one, Gordon played one, so that's really
Okay.
useful.
yeah, it was. But
And it
Gordon
was a
was
bit mixed, but
unbelievable last night.
he
Like for
is
45
good.
minutes, he was just like
Yeah,
he looked quicker than I've ever seen him play. Like he was, yeah,
physically, he's yeah. I occasionally I would preface this with like I'm a Newcastle fan rather than a Newcastle analyst.
yeah,
So there is emotion and bias in here, and I don't pretend to know all the ins and outs and all the tactics. Like
mm-mm,
I watch Newcastle more than I watch any other club because it's where I'm from. But it is like I prefer to just watch and enjoy it. It's
yeah.
emotion for me rather than like, oh, what's all the tactics going on here? Nothing like that. But yeah, my opinions, my emotion, my team.
Yeah, yeah.
All good.
So I don't have any inside knowledge, but then again, most people who talk about this is going to be the 11, they don't really know either.
But even
Um,
if you did know,
yeah,
let's just say we knew. Let's just say
yeah,
Eddie Howe turned up and said, which he never does. Anything he does, he
and I
lies.
wouldn't
So we
trust him
wouldn't
if
get
he
it.
did. Yeah,
Yeah. But let's just say Anthony Gordon's playing 90 minutes for every single game here on
yeah.
in. Does he still not get in your team?
Um, I don't think I'd start with him still. I think I'd need Eze to not to leave because Eze's got pens. Gordon
Mm,
won't unless Isak and Wilson aren't on the pitch.
mm.
And I think with no Wilson, I think Isak's going to be playing nearly 90 because we've got 1 game a week. There's no Europe. and he is fit enough to do that when he's not injured. So Gordon's not going to get pens. He would get he'd get corners and maybe a few free kicks if Trippier goes, which is a bit of a plus. But I just think Eze is a better asset with his penalties and matching his goal threat roughly. And I don't really see a structure that I like where I need Eze and Gordon. And he is 7.5, so actually, like, I have Eze and Nkunku in my team, and I don't see anywhere where I'd want to find 0.5 or a million to get to Eze and Gordon. But I'm not saying Gordon is not a good pick at all. Again, I think that's that. There's two parts in FPL, which I think is probably one of the analytics tips. Is like there's player evaluation and projections, and then there's finding the best team from those evaluations. So if I go without Haaland, you're not saying, well, Haaland's not going to score against Ipswich. Ipswich are very solid defensively. You're just saying, like, he's so expensive that there's structure around him. So I think Gordon's a really good player and a good asset. And I think he ran maybe a little hot last year, especially in the home games. But there's some threat from Barnes, there's some threat from Murphy. I don't think he's like a guaranteed, I can't believe more people don't have him pick. Whereas Isak playing with pens, there are some builds where you can go like, well, Haaland, Solanke, Muniz, or Pedro, or something like that, without Isak, which I think can be viable. And I might even look at that for a bit of relative risk, but probably keep him in. But Gordon, I think, he's probably just our best attacker rather than an amazing 7.5 is my player evaluation. But even if I thought he was amazing, like, he doesn't necessarily get in. I think it's at home in the first game is the one that's really looking good rather than like I know we have historically done quite well against Spurs at St. James's, but it's not necessarily an easy fixture. So then Bournemouth and Wolves away. Bournemouth on no Fulham away, City at home. They're good. Not getting me wrong, but yeah, I think I don't really think any of the mids are. Murphy's 5.5. If people fancy to put on him, then Almiron's going to be starting. But there's some risk of Barnes and Gordon. Yeah, and I think defensively, I think we should shore up defensively because we've got Pope back, who is a big loss. And we've got our midfield destroyers with Bruno and Joelinton and soon to be Tonali. So I don't expect us to be as poor defensively as we were last year, but I think the year before that they were very strong. They were like top 4 defenses, and I'm not sure we're going to see a top 4 defense. But the attack is where it's at, which is why everyone's basically just picked Isak and no one else.
Yeah,
probably boringly the right play, but there's options. You can explore them, especially if you're doing bench boost 1 wildcard 2. I don't dislike Hall. Hall's a good pick, I think. If I was picking a short term, I'd pick Hall of any of them. If I was going any longer than that, I'd probably just avoid. I don't think Burn is. Depends on Gahey news. Don't know.
My only thing from watching Friday night was that Joelinton, you just kind of forgot how much he leads the press and how
I love him. He's so good.
It's just so powerful. Like, he was just like, Christ, I just forgot. Like, he's such a weirdly dynamic player. Like, he's like, it's just odd. You know, it makes me feel like the Spurs fans, Moussa Dembele, in a way, if you've got this guy that people just don't really know what to do against him. And that's exactly how he was. He set up so many counters in that first half where he just barged through people and was like, I'm off. We're off. Hall was good. He's almost like too brave on the ball quite often. He gave away the ball in some silly positions by trying to play out in a fun way. But you're like, at some point, do they go just
I mean,
defensive?
He's what? Isn't he 18? So
from
a fan perspective, very excited. Like, he's going to be a great player in the coming seasons. But
and Gordon, and even the fact of Joelinton back just felt like it was good for Gordon as well, because it was like, oh, I've got this left-sided centre midfielder there, he just go. And but the way he accelerated for his goal, and Isak was just everywhere. He was everywhere. He sometimes in a way, the fact that he's everywhere makes him not like a full number 9. And when they put balls into the box, suddenly like Joe Linton's crashing the box. So you've got somebody else that's quite big and someone else around it. So I'm like, maybe he's not as talismanic as I'd like him to be as a striker. But
yeah,
and he missed a penalty, so you immediately start thinking,
Yeah. I'm sure it'll be fine. I think
But-
I guess the counterpoint to him being everywhere is that actually like he's one of these players who can create something from anywhere.
Yeah.
So like
His feet
sometimes
are
you're
so
like, oh,
good.
what's this number 9 doing on the wing? Get back in the box. You're not helping there.
Mm.
Whereas if Isak picks the ball up on the wing, you're like, he could get the ball into the box and shoot from here.
Yeah.
And not many players can do that.
I don't see whatever I end up with. I actually don't see me not captaining Isak in game week 1. I think that will be my captain regardless.
I think I'm there now. I think I think he is. Yeah, I think he's the best option for the week, and it's an opportunity to take it. It's an opportunity where I think a lot of people are just gonna. A lot of people that are gonna captain Salah as well. So there is definitely an opportunity there as well.
I quite like Saka too. If we're pretty sure he's starting.
Yeah.
So there are a few options. He's not far and away standout, but he's probably I say safest, not in terms of like relative risk, but in terms of like he's going to play. He'll play 90. They're playing Southampton.
Home promoted side, isn't it? So it's like okay, cool.
Yeah.
I quite like away promoted side. Just go Big Dom. Monday night. Let everyone else have their captains. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Let them have their captains.
Yeah, last game of the game week.
Monday night
vibes.
With my 5 City Tottenham assets. I have 5 Tottenham players and captain.
Where are you going to be ranked on Monday morning? Last. I'm going to points. Come on.
Yes, but I can look into it and say I was just unlucky. I won't regret any of my moves.
Oh man.
On
that note, we are done tonight. We are done. JC, thanks very much for coming on this evening. And
you're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
I say this evening because normally we're live. We've recorded this one, and this will be released on Sunday morning. So,
good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful Sunday morning, or Monday, or whenever you're listening to it. So, we've got one piece of content left, which I think is going to be our final drafts, which we're going to release hopefully on Wednesday. We're going to put that together. It might be a Thursday morning job, but I'm sure you'll want to see that anyway because Game Week 1 deadline is Friday. So we're almost there.
Yeah, it's not long.
Almost there. And there's the only other preseason information we're going to get now is Liverpool and Chelsea play on Sunday. And I think that's it. Everyone done? I think. I don't know whether there's any closed door stuff or anything like that. You mentioned Tottenham might.
Arsenal going to have a game.
Arsenal got a game?
Yeah, Arsenal going to have a game.
Try and Spurs, maybe, I guess.
Maybe Spurs. But yeah, once again, go follow JC at FPL _Spaceman on X. And yeah, make sure you drop a like on the video, hit subscribe, do all the wonderful stuff. And if you're going to Fantasy Football Fest, we will see you there. See you later, guys.
See you there.